What's going on? It's Matt. We're back with another restaurant expert roundup. This time we're going digital with food with Mr. Carl Orsbourn. You know, ever since we got this new studio, I find myself getting closer and closer to the microphone. So I don't know if I think I'm a DJ and I'm going to start spinning records, but Carl, tell us who you are.
It's great to hear from you again, Matt. I hope things are good on your side. I think you need to start thinking about maybe doing some movie previews. Maybe it's too late for the Bond movie, but maybe if you keep going in deeper to that microphone, you'll be able to get that gig as well.
I could do that. I mean, I'm pretty talented. I think I'm a talented individual. I could hit you today in theaters now. So tell us, you're on the other side of the pond. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and tell us a little bit about this book that we're going to talk about today.
There it is. Well, I certainly herald from the other side of the pond. I'm actually in beautiful sunny California these days. I've had enough of the British weather. Let's put it that way. So I've spent a number of years over here now. No, it's great to be on. I'm really glad to be able to have a chance to chat with you, Matt. I know we connected. I think it was a year or so ago when we started really getting into this space of writing this book, which of course is very timely, given the fact that the amount of digital disruption affecting the industry, particularly over the last year, was at the forefront of our mind when we came up with the idea of writing it. The book in itself is trying to pull it all together, explain why is this happening, explain really why we think the digital disruption isn't something that's a pandemic effect, but actually something that the consumer is demanding. And hopefully it's going to help independent restaurant owner operators out there see a pathway to a future of opportunity and promise, as opposed to what sometimes feels a little bit awkward and expensive and just something that perhaps they didn't want to get into the business for.
Yeah. And did you start this before the pandemic? Yeah. Or was this okay?
My co-author and I, we were driving back from Kitchen United, where we worked at the time, and I was leading operations and customer success. And it was interesting even in those moments, because we were seeing restaurant owner operators that had the foresight to be in a ghost kitchen, but they still were treating it, if you will, like adding an additional restaurant unit like any other entity into their business, as opposed to what's different about opening up new units in a digital and virtual context. Okay. And we said to each other, look, if only there was a book out there, if only there was a book that could help people understand how this is from an unbiased perspective. And so after we left Kitchen United, we went about working on it. And during a pandemic, it's not a bad thing to work on. For the next pandemic that comes along, write a book. It helps you pass the time.
And I think it's interesting because, every restaurant has its niche, and there's certain things that fit better with restaurants, whether we'll talk about it in a minute, like third party or ghost kitchens or just online ordering is basic as it gets. But the thing that cracks me up is I remember before the pandemic, I remember this one, I won't mention their name or call them out, but this one restaurant in particular, for 6 months, we would have the same conversation about online ordering, about your menu on your website, and about, all these little things, QR codes and menus and third party. And they didn't want to adapt. And the one thing to me, which I've heard it a couple of times in the past week, and I hear it on a weekly basis, and it cracks me up, is I hear restaurant owners say, from my world, we're in the marketing world, it's all about awareness. Oh, we don't advertise. I'm like, well, that's great, because McDonald's and Coke are the biggest behemoths in the world. And guess what the hell they do? They advertise. And I know one part in your book, and you mentioned it early on, is, the tools nowadays are available to that mom and pop independent, and they're not expensive. There's so many opportunities to look and feel like a McDonald's and be Joe's Diner down the street. So let's dig into the book. So first, if you don't have it, people, what are you waiting on? It's right here. You can go to Amazon. You can get it, and you can leave a review. Is there a better place you want them to go other than Amazon, or is that the best place, or do you have another site you want me to tell them about?
Well, they absolutely can go to Amazon, but if you're more of a fan of the first-party platforms that I suspect we'll get onto, you can go to deliveringthedigitalrestaurant.com and get a copy direct from us as well.
Okay, so delivering the digital restaurant and add .com at the end of it, and you're gold. So first thing I want to talk about is I went through here and looked. I haven't read the entire book yet. I read, I have a chapter issue. Sometimes I'm reading a book, I read it, but other times I'm reading something like this. I've got 5, I pull chapters and I pull things from it and look at it. There's one thing that caught my attention here. Now you're talking about it from a different standpoint, but I think it's across all platforms. The one missing thing that I see happening, this is on page 178, is engaging your customers, whether they're in the restaurant. God forbid you go over and have a valid conversation. Don't do it a restaurateur. A GM of a restaurant said to me and David Scott Peters a couple weeks ago, he walked up to our table and said, "Is everything good?" And David's like, "Man, good could go, like, good's not excellent." But, engage your customers in the restaurant, engage them on Facebook, engage them on Instagram, engage them with digital ordering, engage them on reviews. So talk about your thought process with regards to delivering that digital experience and how to engage customers correctly.
Yeah, it's a great point you raise. I think today we're in an era, Matt, where we have so much data available. So for restaurants that have been able to transverse the customer, the guest into a first-party platform where you're able to get access to exactly who they are, where they live, how often they come to visit you. Perhaps you've got omni-channel data where you can combine the data from even platforms like OpenTable, where you understand that on their last visit to you, they ordered this particular Cabernet Sauvignon, or they don't eat meat. And you combine all these different verticals of data together to create an experience for your guest that only the very best maitre d' or only the very best servers in your restaurant could otherwise, match.
Yep.
And now these services, as you mentioned earlier, the satification, if you will, of tools are enabling you to be able to do this without being the best server or the best marketeer, because there are algorithms and systems that you can utilize to help you basically say, well, actually, this is how I want to treat my most loyal guests. This is how I want to treat the guests that are trying me for the first time and perhaps haven't fully become a fully engaged customer. And then there are people that you've already started to identify with in some way that perhaps only order a certain item from your menu on a certain day of the week. And that gives you opportunities to be able to reach out to them, just to pluck their memory to say, hey, it's Tuesday again. Over the last 3 weeks, you've ordered this salad from us. Do you want to get it again? And that type of capability is now in the hands of every independent restaurateur in America and beyond. And that's both incredibly exciting, but also very scary for many.
Yeah. And there's so many things out there that just crack me up from an engagement standpoint. I was talking to Zach Oates this morning because we're shooting video in Utah. Do you know Zach, by the way?
I was only speaking to him yesterday myself in Florida.
So there we go. So I was talking to him. We're in Utah in a couple of weeks and filming, and I was talking to him this morning about some stuff. But he's got a review platform, and whether it's the basic elements of responding, and God forbid when somebody says, "Hey, we had great food, and Susie's an awesome server," that you get on Yelp and you say, "Susie is great. She's also an awesome mom. She's also great at her church." I mean, to engage customers, but from a data standpoint, it cracks me up. I remember it's about 2 months ago now that I was talking to a restaurant owner. I think they have 6 or 7 locations. And he was like, "Man, I got an embarrassing question for you." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, looking at our platform, we do online ordering through, and we've got like 18,000 or so people, unique people that have come through it since we turned it on." They turned it on, of course, the day before the pandemic. Like everybody kind of saw that right on the wall, but he turned it on like they didn't have it before. They turned it on and they went completely, pick up and delivery for 3 or 4 months, and hybrid since then. But he's like, "We haven't used it at all." I'm like, "What do you mean you haven't used it at all?" Like they say a lot of times, like, you got people that have $1 million cash sitting in the bank. Why aren't you using it to make that million have babies and become 5 million? Well, you get 18,000 people and you can look in there and go, okay, this segment ordered guac. This segment didn't. This segment did this. I'm in Cincinnati area, and Kroger is here locally, and Kroger, a big supermarket behemoth, they famously back in the day were one of the first to have a loyalty program that, like, your direct mail showed up, that I would go every week and I would buy certain items. Me, my daughter, and my son would make chocolate chip pancakes on Sundays. Well, within a couple of weeks, I started getting direct mail pieces that had things that complemented chocolate chip pancakes. And, it was their algorithm. It wasn't like some guy was in a room going, "Oh, there's Matt Plapp, pancakes, chocolate chips. Let's send him something about our new syrup." So there's so many opportunities out there, and these tools, the thing that restaurants would hide behind 2 or 3 or 4 years ago was, "Oh, we can't afford them." Well, hell, anybody can afford them now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I mentioned OpenTable earlier. And OpenTable 10, 12 years ago was having the capability for a restaurant to be able to say, oh, this guest has ordered this from us. And you can put that in the notes for then the return visit. So look, we're in an age right now where the technology is fantastic. I would almost go as far as to say, Matt, you know what, we could slow down a bit on the technology and innovation and allow restaurateurs a bit of time to build their capability up, and also address this issue of capacity. You know, there's only a certain amount of hours in the day. For sure, the satification of these tools is making the restaurateur's life easier, but it's still a suite of skills that they've never had to really call upon in this way before. And I think it's for that reason why the technology companies and anyone that's involved in supporting restaurants understand this digitization that's occurring need to put time into, much like what you're doing, helping them get it and understand that it's possible, but you need to follow a certain kind of approach.
You know what's crazy, and what's crazy for me, and I say this, and I can say this, that I am biased in this case because we are a company that people can hire. I am a coach. We do consulting, but every restaurant in this country is hiring right now. They're hiring people, yet they're not hiring consultants. They're not hiring people that can help them put in place better digital strategies. Like I was telling somebody today, I'm like, you realize I could give you 20 consultants right now that cost you between $500 to $1,500 a month. And you pick 2 or 3 of them, you've got the expense of a full-time employee. And I can tell you, people like myself, people like yourself can put strategies in place that drive revenue pretty quick. And it amazes me how many restaurants, like I think the next revolution needs to be like you've got delivering the digital restaurant. It needs to be, outsourcing the expertise, helping, going out as a one location restaurant. And like one of our clients who's got a one location pizza restaurant told me recently, she's like, Matt, you're our marketing department. Like we don't have to worry about things. You guys handle it. And we got another company that does our payroll. We have another guy that does our taxes. And I think there's a lot of people out there that can help with these things. And I think that's the next step is people understanding that they don't have to be the genius and do it all. They can find people that are capable of guiding them down that path.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. I think it's one of these areas right now that you don't have to have the talent always in-house. You just need people to show you a bit of the way, because these tools have been designed in such a way that enables you to be able to do it yourself. Yep. And it's, the marketeers that were working with restaurants 15, 20 years or so ago, a lot of it was done through the location, right? You're walking past this wonderful branding outside the restaurant, you're smelling the food being cooked in the kitchen. And now in a digital context, in an off-premise context, it's a very different ballgame. So it's okay to invest in some time to get the support you need.
Yeah, I agree completely. Of course, that's what we do. So if I don't, I'm an idiot. So let's talk about the next topic, Chapter 8, growing beyond dine-in. And this is, to me, it's kind of ironic. A couple avenues to talk about this and get your feedback was like today. I went today to a place called Better Blend. It's about, if I had to guess, 2 miles from my office here. I got an acai bowl. I actually I could have walked in and ordered in line, but I've gotten into this groove that I log into their online ordering through Toast. And got it saved to my favorites. I pop in there, my credit card's on there. I order. I'm pretty predictable. I have 2 items I get there. Like maybe everyone wants to mug me. They know where I'm going to go. I'm predictable everywhere in life, probably. But with them, I go in there, I order, I wait a couple minutes, play around, do a couple things, walk in, grab my food and leave. Where in the past, I used to walk in, stand in line. They got a person at the register. There's 7 people backed up. There's all these little aspects. My wife and my kid and myself, we're kids, we go to Dairy Queen down the street and we'll get blizzards every couple of weeks. And we used to go in there and sit in Dairy Queen. Now we're accustomed to picking those up. There's food we get delivered now. I used to get pizza delivered 5 years ago. Now we get cheeseburgers and wings and French fries. Like restaurants that we're dealing with 2 years ago were 99% dine-in. Now they're at that same capacity revenue-wise they were 2 years ago, but they're 50% dine-in. Mm-hmm. And there's all these third party, there's all these things that, like you say in Chapter 8, growing beyond dine-in. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. I mean, look, first of all, what I will say is dine-in's not going away. There's still absolutely going to be a huge aspect of restaurant channels to take that dine-in. And I would argue, if anything, dine-in's only going to improve. It's going to be something where it's going to become a much better experience for people that want to have the dine-in experience. But the book and everything we talk about is really around the fact that society now and the consumer is demanding more convenience. You've got to meet them where they are. We call it, I want what I want when I want it. And it's very much about this mindset that's being shaped by other verticals, the GoPuffs of this world, that are saying, if you want something within 30 minutes, we will get it to you. And so therefore restaurants are having to have this system to be able to support with that. Now, growing beyond dining is saying, well, look, assuming you've got to a place where you've, yes, got yourself on the third-party platforms, you're using that as a customer acquisition tool, but then you've also got your first-party platform, your Lunchbox, your Chow Now, whatever the kind of right system is for you, in place so that you don't have to necessarily pay the 30% fees every time you've got that customer coming back to you. Once you've got that in place, the next challenge is about, how do I actually build my tray value? How do I build my basket value? And how do I improve the frequency of visit? So that way I've actually got enough people coming back to me and actually enjoying my food. Now, there's a given here, which is you got to make sure your product's good. Yeah. I would still go to a place where I'd say, actually, the quality for certainly on the virtual brand side of things still needs to improve. So we shouldn't forget that piece of it. You've got to have a solid product, first of all, to ensure that you can do this. But then it's about how can you actually innovate even further. Now, we've seen in California, we've seen in Florida, the extensions of alcohol delivery, for example. Yep. We've seen Uber just last week finish the Drizzly transaction, spend $1 billion to enable alcohol to be added on. You know, high margin, great additional way to grow your tray value right there. Thinking about ways to be able to use things that are low cost to you as incentives. So how could you actually have a proprietary beverage yourself as a way to be able to create someone to think, okay, I'm ordering this particular food dish, and the restaurant now, like a great sommelier would do, would say, well, I'm going to pair this particular proprietary beverage with you. Wow, you're giving me some added value here. Fantastic. I like that idea. And then you've got to go to the place of saying, well, okay, if these kind of tactics can help with growing the tray value, what can I do to increase the frequency? And we say a piece in the book, I think it was Zach Goldstein from Thanks, we talked about the idea of using virtual brands as a way to increase frequency. So let's say, you know, lunch today, you have a burger, and tomorrow you get an email from the restaurant saying, Matt, you're feeling guilty about that high calorie burger you had yesterday? Well, guess what? We've got this 30% discount for a salad. Now that salad, to the customer, they don't necessarily know it's coming from the same restaurant and the same kitchen that made the burger. But for them, they're seeing that you're creating that engagement, that kind of connection to them to think, I love it. They actually know what I ordered and actually perhaps what's going through my mind as to what I actually should have for my food today.
I shouldn't have did that yesterday.
Say again?
It's like I shouldn't have did that yesterday.
Exactly. But, you know, these are some of the fun ways, the ways in which a customer feels that you really get them. But also through virtual brands, you can use this as a mechanism to then increase the frequency rate. I mean, just think about your favorite restaurants that you go to and how often you repeat your visits. How often do you actually go back to them? And so all of these ways in which virtual brands are emerging are enabling restaurants to be able to do that. That does create operational complexities. You know, one of the big challenges that I think hasn't really truly been solved for yet is this piece around thinking about the operational throughput of a kitchen. So what I mean by that is, you know, 10 years or so ago, a restaurant's capacity would be defined by the amount of tables and the turn time of those tables.
Yeah.
And now you've got a 15-minute kind of radius around your restaurant, opening up to millions of customers potentially. And so now it's not so much about that. Now it's actually, well, how many dishes can you push out through that kitchen?
Yeah.
And therefore, how do you actually optimize your kitchen processes and your ingredient consolidation to enable you to then have maybe not one, but 2 or 3 different virtual brands on top of your core concept? And these are the things that I think we're going to see further innovation over the course of the next few years.
And that's definitely a huge thing, because like you said, that kitchen was built for that 50 table dining room and X% delivery and pickup. And now here we are all of a sudden, well, guess what? You've got 500 dining rooms within 5 minutes of you. But the one thing I do have concerns with on the virtual brands is, it happened to me recently. My son, who's obviously, we're different generations. He's 17, I'm 45. He ordered some boneless wings from somewhere. And, you know, it's kind of comical. Me and my wife could be going to dinner and we'll call him like, oh, I've already got food. And we assume he made like a peanut butter sandwich. Oh no, he's on Uber Eats or DoorDash ordering something. And I see the order and the charge the next day. But he orders these boneless wings. And, you know, the next day I was looking through the refrigerator. I'm like, oh, some leftover. And I ate them and they were delicious. And I'm like, where are these from? He's like, I don't know. So I look and the brand doesn't exist. Like, it's not online. Like, me personally, when I go to Uber Eats or when I go to DoorDash, I'm ordering something I'm familiar with, that I've seen, that I've touched. Now, granted, he's 17. He doesn't see and touch as much. So he's more probably susceptible to ordering from a brand that's not brick and mortar. I wouldn't personally. I won't order from somewhere because, I mean, one, I don't know if it's being prepared in Joe Schmo's kitchen in his basement with his mom's wheelchair rolling around. So, I mean, I think it's demographics. There's probably a younger generation that would take that risk. There's another one that wouldn't. But the other part for me is kind of a two-part, is that I enjoyed the food. I'm like, damn, these are some good sauce. And now I'm bummed. Like, I don't even know where it's from. Like, I'd like to go sit down there, but I guess I probably can't.
Yeah, I hear you. I think in fact, I think only in the last few weeks, we've seen the likes of Yelp and Uber Eats and DoorDash start to actually say this is coming from a virtual brand.
Yeah.
But for people like yourself that are that much concerned around it, you might go, well, actually, now I'm not going to try it. Yeah, I think where we'll see things evolve in that area, though, is actually, let me take a back step to that. Think about the restaurant design over the last 10 years or so. And the fact that in many ways, the kitchen has been opened up. So you're sitting in a restaurant, you're looking out, and you actually can see the cooks in the kitchen making your lunch. That's been done for a reason. It's been done to create the theater of dining out, but it's also about trust. It wasn't so long ago we had the Chipotle scandal and food safety issues from that standpoint. And so therefore, virtual brands and quite honestly, delivery entirely. We mentioned in the book that at one point, US Foods discovered that 1 in 3 dishes were actually tampered with by a driver. Right? That there are things out there that people that perhaps aren't so accommodating of having things delivered are still a little bit untrustworthy.
Yeah.
So when you take that into account, trust in brands is certainly going to be important. But how do you help the customer be able to understand, well, what's happening? Now, the functionality exists to be able to see where your dish is on its journey. Is it still in the kitchen? Is it in transit to my house? But maybe we'll get to a place where virtual brands actually allow the customer to be able to view through video the kitchen.
Yeah,
right?
I like
Maybe
that.
you actually see your food being made, so you're not seeing someone picking their nose and not washing their hands and things. That kind of stuff might be something that comes in time to enable people to have that kind of level of confidence.
Or if it's even a virtual tour, because that would, for me, if I was going to order, and I've done it out of town, if I'm at a hotel in a city I don't know and I'm hungry and it's 11 o'clock and I got to get out and I just want something to eat because I got a plane, I'll do a virtual because I don't know the restaurant, so I don't know if it's not or it is or isn't. But if there was hey, we're a virtual restaurant, we understand you might not trust this as much, but here's a little quick tour of our kitchen and our facility, and that would be cool. But you said something a minute ago, which I think you got my heart going, is it's a customer acquisition tool. When you're a brick and mortar, I've been saying this for 3 years, and I've had restaurants look at me like I'm silly. I'm like, dude, Uber Eats is a advertising platform. Grubhub is an advertise. If you're not smart enough to figure out a way to convert that person into ordering from you directly or picking up or coming to your restaurant and dining in, that's not my fault. And they all complain about the 30%. And I'm like, you know what? One, I've seen most of you hike your prices up. Number two, that's what it costs to acquire somebody. So get their damn information. Like, talk about that a little.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I've agreed with you for a long time, listening from afar, Matt. I think this is the big elephant in the room. When you think about the cost of what that might be, $6-9 as a cost of customer acquisition, the CAC, I guess, is the term that we'd use it in a digital marketing context. That's actually pretty good. The challenge is if you're paying that money 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, you've got to create something which allows the customer to say, actually, I would prefer to actually come onto your platform and support you as an independent restaurant, but you've got to give me the reason to do that.
Yep.
You've got to give me the reason to be able to do that. And that starts with packaging. It starts with the only point of contact you have with the customer, the unknown customer. It's almost like the Apple unboxing experience. How do you create that to be such a delightful experience that not only the food is standing out as a kind of celebration of your restaurant, but actually the packaging too. So there's obviously the quality and the integrity of the food in transit, but then also the ability for you to have an offer of sorts that attracts the customer to go, I've really enjoyed this. We'll try these again. We'll have this again. And sometimes even that second point of contact needs to be so lucrative that even that's going to be a loss leader for you. But the thing is the moment you've got that customer engagement on your platform, then you get the data that we spoke about earlier. That then gives you a chance to convert them and bring them back for more occasions. But actually, when you look at the cost of acquisition, it's actually pretty reasonable. All the stuff that you would currently spend on the capital for building out your restaurant, the fancy sign outside your restaurant, the cost of the person that's actually welcoming people into your restaurant. All these are costs. These are customer acquisition tools that have just been part of the industry for decades. And now it's just reshaped into a different way.
Oh, it cracks me up. I had this conversation with one of our sales guys in Arizona today, that the minute you give anybody, what they say, you give them an inch, they take a foot. The minute you give a business owner, hey, you've been spending $100,000 on that sign, you've been spending $300,000 on your build out, you've got this $10,000 giant silver metal, transformer in front of your restaurant. You have no earthly clue what any of it has actually done. But the minute I show you that a Facebook ad did this, an email did this, now you're going to pick those stats apart and go, this is why it's terrible. But I'll give you an example of how it doesn't necessarily have to be a monetized thing. Like, so back when the pandemic hit, me and my team, we continued to work. We had our office in downtown Cincinnati, and myself and Doug Smith and a couple others would go there every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we didn't change our pattern. We went down there. So about probably midway through April, we're sitting there, and every restaurant at that point had closed. That's why we had our office in downtown Cincinnati. It was a cool area, a lot of cool restaurants. There was no damn restaurants anywhere. And none of them delivered. And I'm like, I'm going to get on Uber Eats. I'm ordering lunch today. And so I get on Uber Eats, and there's Mac's Pizza Pub. And I didn't know they had 2 locations, but they had one in Covington, about 5 minutes from us and across the river in Kentucky. And they had one north of us. And I'm like, oh, I've been to Mac's. Their wings and pizza are fire. Doug, you want pizza and wings? Hell yeah. We ordered pizza and wings. So Mac's gets delivered to us by Uber Eats. We open the bag, and there's a handwritten Post-it note that says, hey, Matt, we appreciate your order. Did you know we deliver for free within your territory from our XYZ store? Because I ordered apparently from the wrong one. And this ended up coming from the store above us. And I'm like, I didn't know there was a store there. And 2, like, that got my attention.
Yeah.
We ordered Mac's every Wednesday at the end of that April, May, June, July, August. Every Wednesday directly from them. So it cost them, let's say we spent $30. They spent $9 with Uber to get Matt Plapp and Doug Smith, and we had numerous other people to order $30, let's say 20 more visits. So $600. I'll take that ROI all the time. And it wasn't even a bribe. It was literally just asking as a human, hey, by the way, we appreciate your business. You can order directly. And I can make that connection as a human and go, oh, they're going to make this, they'll earn more profit by me doing this. And I liked that they did it, but it was simple as a damn Post-it.
Such a great example. I mean, that is digital hospitality in a story right there for sure. I mean, it's kind of Danny Meyer kind of has said about this for a number of times, hasn't he? If you think about it, I think, Danny has always had this idea of those little touches, that ability for you to be able to create a mechanism where your customer feels that you really care about them. And, we talked to a gentleman by the name of Lloyd Wenzel in the book. And Lloyd was the VP of food and beverage at Caesar's Palace in Vegas. He had 1,500 staff reporting into it. Okay. And he made this analogy associated to room service being very similar to drivers, and the way in which, in many ways, drivers are the extension of your brand. But actually, what are you doing to help those drivers solve a difficult problem when problems arise? And so one of the biggest challenges, of course, that arise is that food is running late. It's not arriving in the time that you thought it would arrive in. And he talks about, at least in Caesar's Palace, the idea of giving a chocolate dipped strawberry on the tray, just as a way of saying, look, we're sorry we're running late, but enjoy this dessert on us.
Yep.
What could a restaurant do that recognizes that they're not delivering on the time, but just to give that little moment, just to, take a bad situation and make it a little bit better, not necessarily solve for it, but make it a little bit better. It's these little touches that actually can still exist in this digital world.
And think about that touch as an upsell too. So Basilio's Pizza, Connie and Tom up in Fairbutte, Minnesota, a company we work with. Back when the pandemic hit, we started talking, and I had an idea. I give videos to our clients. I said, hey, I got an idea. If you've got dessert, there's a pizza place. We have a lot of pizza clients where I say, if you've got a dessert pizza, chop it up into small things, put it inside the container, put it in the to-go box when people pick up, and have a note on it that says, we know we appreciate you during this tough time. We appreciate your continued support. She's like, Matt, people were, 1, surprised we gave them something for free and the thank you note, but 2, our dessert sales went up because people are like, oh shit, this is good. And then next thing you know, they're ordering a cookie pizza. And the same thing there, that chocolate covered cherry, which I'm in Vegas next week. I might sneak into Caesars and try to get a chocolate covered cherry, but they now all of a sudden they're ordering something. But you brought up something that was my last banner that I want to talk about, is you talked about that gig worker is an extension of your brand. And that scares the shit out of me for some of these people. Chapter 10, gig workers are your new servers. And I might look at it differently because I'm in the business, but I've been at restaurants and I've watched that certain Uber Eats drivers come in and they look fine. Some of them, the other ones look like they just got mugged. And I wonder, like, what can the industry do to fix that? Because you're never going to have that person really care as much as Susan, that's a server or bartender for 5 years in your restaurant. Now you got this person that apparently doesn't care about their personal appearance, apparently doesn't care that their door's falling off. And like you said, 1 out of every 3 are probably eating a French fry on the way there. I think that's going to get better. But what can restaurants do to maybe ease the concerns of that? Or is that in the hands of Uber Eats and these guys to get their gig workers at a different level?
Yeah, the chapter we cover in this really does demonstrate all the different views. We talk about someone that's very disgruntled as a gig worker, and then someone that's actually a top dasher and enjoys the kind of experience. And it's a tough one. I became a dasher in research for the book.
Oh,
and it's great to be able to do that because you get to see the sentiment of what you hear in the interviews of the people that you speak to. And quite honestly, Matt, I came away from that experience thinking, wow, restaurants do not care a bit about me. And I'm a nice guy, right? I dress pretty well. And so I turned up. But the challenge is, of course, is that a lot of the sentiment that people are associating to me is 30% fees, or I'm taking away the tips from the people that are working in the restaurant that the restaurant owner operator has a relationship with. And these are all challenges in the sense that actually the restaurant nor DoorDash are employing me either. And so therefore I'm limited in how I can be trained, because otherwise if I'm trained too much,
yeah, you're an employee. Then
I'm going to be an employee. And then we get into all the issues around that. So what can you do?
So it's two sides, not to interrupt, but it's like, I have this opinion of this dasher. And then at the same time, I've never been a dasher. I walk in and that restaurateur is treating me like shit. Like, oh God. And well, dude, I'm helping you keep your cash flow. I'm helping you acquire a customer. So go on. I that was a good point there.
Yeah. And I think everyone is familiar with the kind of restaurant kind of challenge. And so that's why we try to shape this chapter in that kind of direction. And then I'll just give you this anecdote from my time when I was running operations at Kitchen United. One of the things that we felt was really, really important was to make the drivers feel welcomed, to give them a free drink when they arrived, to give them a place where they could sit down and rest while the dishes were being prepared for them, make sure the restrooms were nice and clean for them, not treat them as the nuisance that sometimes they are presenting to a front of house team. It's the reason why restaurants are redesigning their very restaurant right now to ensure off-premise transactions can happen at the front and guests are being serviced right at the back of the restaurant. They're kind of separating out the channels. And I think that is something which then plays into the main theme that we try to do. And that is, if you treat the driver right, if you treat them in a service mentality, something that many of these drivers perhaps haven't been trained on, that haven't been blessed with the hospitality training that many of us in the restaurant industry have had, then they're going to leave your restaurant feeling that much better about your package. And rather than tossing the pizza box onto the doorstep of the customer's door, they're going to hopefully hand it over in a better mindset than someone that hasn't been treated right. And that's the least that restaurants, I think, can do to try and ensure that their brand is an extension of them. We do present a whole range of different options in the chapter, which talks about how others are treating driver and the driver business model differently. But that, I think, is an important sentiment that any restaurant owner or operator can consider.
And I haven't read that chapter yet, so I don't know if this idea is in there. But man, you just gave me a way to turn it on its head. I'm thinking, okay, like what? Think about it from a standpoint that Uber Eats driver, that Grubhub, that third-party driver comes in the restaurant and they haven't been there before. And it's like, hey, Matt, yeah, we appreciate you, man. Hey, by the way, what size shirt are you? You're a 2X? Okay, cool. Hey, here's a shirt. We'd love it if you rock this in the future when you deliver. Because at the same time, think about it. You're treating them differently. Here's a drink. Here's a shirt. Here's something cool for your car, whatever. I mean, it's a cell phone charging cable. Who knows? But something that all of a sudden, now they, oh man, I'm endeared to this place a little better. But at the same time, maybe they're rocking that shirt. Maybe you give that same driver 3 shirts over the next 2 months. And every time he delivers other restaurants' food, he's showing up at that house's front door with a Matt's Pizza Pub. And they go, oh, that sounds good for next time.
Sure.
So
the platforms still have a role as well to play, though, Matt. I do think they've got something to do here. So think about the tip aspect. This is one of the only things where you actually provide the tip before you've even had the delivery come to you or even tasted the food.
Yeah,
that's weird. So the platforms, I suspect, could actually think about how can they distribute the tip back to either a mix between the restaurant and the driver as well. That could be another angle.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's I tell you, this has been an awesome conversation. I do these interviews a lot, and there's certain things that I can relate to more than others. And there's sometimes I'm like out of the loop, and like everything you said, what I've seen in the book. Another thing I want to cover in the book too is the stories. Like it's at the beginning of chapter, like every chapter. Like when I first started reading this, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what am I reading? And I realized that every chapter starts with a story about that. And it's a really cool book. So it's well done. It's an excellent book. I can't wait to finish reading it completely. I got some flights next week. I'm going to hop on and finish it up, but it's been a great conversation because I think everything we've talked about are things that whether you're a virtual brand or whether you're a brick and mortar, there's all these little things you can do. And there's also 2 sides every story. Like I start this Friday working part-time at Rapid Fired Pizza in Florence, Kentucky, because I want to experience the front of house marketing component that we preach to our restaurants. And the fact that you went out and you were a Door Dasher, doing that and doing research, but also getting the other side of it. Cause hell, I'm sitting here complaining, thinking in my head, a driver coming in, looking like crap, not representing, doesn't care. And they're like, well, shit, that restaurant care about him either or her. Yeah. And so there's some really cool things there. A couple of comments I saw come across here. I'll cover real quick. Albert said, imagine getting a notification that your dish is being made now and check it live feed. That's pretty cool. And then this was from David G. Multi-pizza, multi-unit location. We deliver, cater, dine in, take out, whatever they want, make it, provide it. We do not charge for local delivery. Order online, save money. So there's a great way. You use Uber Eats. Then you have that note like I got from Matt's Pizza Pub that says, hey, come on in next time. So appreciate the opportunity. As you said earlier, delivering the digital restaurant.com. His name is Carl Orsbourn. Carl, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure. Love it. Keep it up. Go on Amazon, go on his website. If you do buy it on Amazon, leave a review. Tell them how awesome it is and let them spread the wealth and then share this content out there and let everybody deliver it.